Hello there, you're watching NDTV. I'm Maha Siddiqui. The government on Tuesday suspended the foreign funding license of Care India over alleged violation of FCRA. Care India is an NGO or a non-governmental organization that has been working for the past 70 years with the aim of ending poverty and social exclusion. In recent times, many NGOs have come under the scanner for alleged misuse of FCRA or the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. The allegations range from influencing policy and mobilizing protests and also to posing a hindrance to development in India, especially those that are working in the environmental sector. Now, the government says that such NGOs are stalling India's growth story and they are violating laws of the land. Licenses of nearly 400 non-governmental organizations have been cancelled, suspended, denied renewal or deemed to have expired over the last 7 months. The big names among these organizations are Oxfam India, Centre for Policy Research, Life and now Care India. The NGOs have alleged undue crackdown and harassment. Oxfam India said that it has been cooperating with all government agencies since its FCRA registration wasn't renewed in December 2021. CPR said that the think tank is in complete compliance with the law and is routinely scrutinized and audited. Amnesty has had a sharper response, in fact, and it has, in its response, alleged a pattern of harassment that has emerged every time the organization has stood up and or spoken out on human rights issues. Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, that's the FCRA, is the law that controls the flow of foreign funding to non-profits in the country. The law has existed since 1976, but amendments since 2010 require additional steps, like renewal of license every 5 years, that funds can't be used for work other than what they have been made for, and funds can't be transferred. NGOs received over 22,000 crores of foreign funds in 2021-22, higher than the previous 2 years. And the government feels that it is in its interest to make the monitoring of the financing of the NGOs tighter. The question is FCRA being used as a tool to regulate this funding or a tool to target? That's the big question that we are asking this evening on the show with regards to the crackdown that is being seen on the NGOs currently. And we've just laid out the number of NGOs that in fact have seen either their licenses being renewed, the renewal of licenses being denied, or them in fact completely suspended. Let me now go across to Venugopal Sarma first of all. He's a former bureaucrat who served in the Ministry of Home Affairs. Many thanks for speaking with NDTV, sir. First of all, certain amendments have been made to the foreign funding for the NGOs, and I just listed out a few of them. There is a perception that these methods, and especially the fact that they have to go through a renewal now every 5 years, is leading to harassment of NGOs.
I cannot make sweeping generalizations, but I think on a case-to-case basis, if a particular NGO is aggrieved, there are mechanisms by which the NGO can approach the higher authorities and give in writing. And these days, the online system of registration has also improved. A lot of e-governance is also taking place. Instead of sending the hard copies to different organizations, now there are systems by which automatically in a seamless manner the information travels. Therefore, if the NGOs can subject themselves to the discipline that is required, like there are certain basic fundamental non-negotiable requirements to be made. For example, a fund which is received for a particular purpose cannot be used for something totally different. Similarly, the funds which are received from abroad are meant for carrying out certain activities and they are not meant for transferring to any other NGO. So therefore, similarly, there are requirements now after the 2020 amendment that there should be a designated bank account in State Bank of India at New Delhi, after which the NGO can have their own different account in any other scheduled bank where this money can be transferred. So those restrictions will have to be followed. And after that, if there is any difficulty in renewal, I am sure there are appropriate mechanisms by which the higher authorities can be approached.
Sir, the question is, and that there is a perception that the number of cases under the scanner have gone up. Has there been a rise in the number of cases of NGOs receiving notices under FCRA? And we just listed out about 400 over the last 7 months itself that we have seen where there has been an issue in the last few years. If you compare this to the past, has there been an actual rise?
I would look at it this way, that since the 2011, the 2010 amendment started coming into force from the year 2011, for the first 5 years, there was no major problem in the sense of workload to the concerned officials or agencies. But after the 5 years, there is a sudden requirement that a large number of NGOs apply for renewal. So the system should be able to cope the workload, the sudden spurt in the workload after 5 years. Similarly, now 10 years have passed after the 2011 amendment. Therefore, there is a sudden workload because large number of NGOs are clamoring around the same time for renewal. Even though some NGOs may not have received any foreign fund, some of them may not be interested to renew their licenses, but by and large, several NGOs are interested to renew their licenses. And when they apply, the workload increases tremendously at every 5 years. So therefore, we are perhaps now in that phase. Therefore, the system needs to be more responsive. Either way, the renewal or the objections, whatever, need to be settled at a clear, in a time frame, in a specific time frame. So that kind of internal monitoring and in a more efficient mechanism using the IT tools, I think the ministry is in the process. They are doing it.
Mr. Sarma, so what is the redressal mechanism for NGOs? If there are such stringent rules that have been put in place that apply on them, then do they have a means of redressal if notices are served to them?
They have to give a reply in writing, meeting the objections which have been communicated to them. If the objection is that, yes, the NGO has parked the funds with another NGO, instead of spending the money, they have parked the funds with another NGO. If that is the point that has been made, that has to be countered, and the NGO, if they have not done such thing, they have to say so. And if the NGO has not done any wrongdoing as defined under the Act, there is no reason why the license should not be renewed. So just as the NGOs, they are all of different varieties. There are some NGOs who are working in disaster management, in disaster response. For example, in the recent aftermath of the railway accident in Baleshwar, many NGOs have worked in terms of response. Tremendous work was done. So there is scope for different NGOs to play different roles. But if a particular NGO which has received money from a foreign country under FCRA conditions, if the money has not been utilized in the manner in which it is meant to be, and if the ministry has served a notice, then it is incumbent upon the NGO concerned to give a proper reply. Point by point, they have to give a reply and apply to the concerned authorities for redressal.
All right. Mr. Venugopal Sarma, many thanks for speaking with NDTV. Let me now go across to our panelists who are joining us here on this discussion. Poonam Mutreja, Executive Director, Population Foundation of India; Ashutosh Srivastav, Advocate, Supreme Court; K.A. Badrinath, Director and Chief Executive, Center for Integrated and Holistic Studies; and Tanveer Ahmad Mir, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, will also be joining us shortly. Poonam Mutreja, coming first to you. Fundings for NGOs are under the scanner. The argument of the government is that if there is nothing wrong, then why should these NGOs worry? Would you buy that argument?
No, I'm afraid the reality is that a large number of NGOs have either not got their renewals, even though 2 years ago the due process was done. And so we keep getting postponement every 3 months. We are told, so as Mr. Sharma said, they have to step up if they're going to renew licenses of 500 every 5 years of NGOs, then this whole process is very detailed. It's like a forensic inquiry. Now, in the case of CARE, for instance, their license was renewed. What happened in the last 6 months is a question, but it is CARE that came forward and said they had made an accounting error in 2012 or 13, and they were willing to pay. They are the ones who came out with the accounting error, and they wanted to pay the compounding fees. But instead, their license is cancelled. Now, CARE is just one of the many organizations. I feel a lot of the organizations I know who are doing good work actually there's a process of first being demonized. All NGOs are being demonized by not just this government, even the previous government. Ever since FCRA came in, or even if FCRA didn't exist, Indian NGOs or NGOs who are only getting Indian money are also, there's all kinds of cases in the recent past that are being sent out. But this whole process started during the previous government, UPA government. Now, this government has brought out laws and rules, which Mr. Sharma talked about. But they don't make any sense. For instance, how will spending, not giving money to another NGO, how does that help? Because we work in collaboration with small NGOs. How do human rights, it's very important to understand that rights-based work is really what the government and our Prime Minister always refers to as good governance. So we are trying to get people to get their entitlements. We are ensuring at the grassroots level that NGOs get, the community gets what is needed. So I have to say that there is something terribly wrong in the way the NGOs are being managed, reviewed, looked at, and there are I just want to mention one NGO that lost their FCRA, which is the Latika Rai Foundation, which works with 350 of the most vulnerable children who are totally disabled. Now, are they trying to change policies? Nothing wrong. Are they trying to change programs in India? Nothing wrong. But who is going to serve these 350 kids that they were serving? So there are a large number, and I finally want to say about CARE. CARE is a globally respected organization that does huge amount of social service, especially on providing food, nutrition.
So on the other flip side, you've laid out several points and the work that NGOs have done, which is largely acknowledged as well. But on the other hand, the issue of funding is something that the government feels is very sensitive. Ashutosh Srivastava, I want to come to you now, because even though the government believes that this is an area that they need to step into, the NGOs, on the other hand, believe that the net spreads wide then from FCRA. They have ED, IT, and they believe that it's a way of harassment, and the process is the punishment here.
See, the laws have been made when there is some misuse or illegal activities which take place for years together. Now, when we talk about this FCRA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, which was amended in 2010, and it has been further amended from time to time. The laws are clearly laid down. Section 11 of FCRA clearly says that it is mandatory to take FCRA certification for taking any foreign funding. And then Section 12 defines under what conditions you can get those kind of registration done from the government side. And if you do any violation of the rules and regulations which are laid down under Section 12, then your licenses may be cancelled under Section 14 of FCRA. Now, under Section 14, when the cancellation of any such registration takes place, there is a process again which is followed. it is not that the central government can directly cancel. It gives you proper opportunity to be heard, and it makes, firstly, inquiry about it. And if it finds that there are certain violations of taking such, foreign funds, and it is in violation of Section 12 of the Act, then in that case, it will give the opportunity to the NGO, to have their say, to have their reply, to have their explanation. And when the explanation is not appropriate, and it clearly, speaks about the violation, and when the government agency is satisfied that there have been violations, only in those kind of circumstances the licenses are cancelled. And even after that, if they feel that it has been cancelled in a lackadaisical way, they have the laws in their hand. They can approach the concerned authorities or the courts to put up their grievances.
That is why, Ashutosh, I asked you that point, that many allege then the process itself becomes the punishment, going from one point to the other, running from pillar to post. Yes.
See, yes, the processes are already defined in the law. This is not a new law which has been made now. That has been continued since years. We had this act since 1976, and it was amended in 2010. The new act was formed. And it clearly says why it was formed. The purpose was that there should not be money laundering kind of a thing where, the NGO, just for the sake of any NGO who takes the foreign funds from some other country, and this fund is being misutilized, or maybe for some wrongful purposes in the country, or to create any sort of, unpeaceful environment, or for any religious activity, or for any such other act which could be in contravention to the peace and security of the country. And for that purpose, the laws have been made. Obviously, see, somebody can say that the processes are itself a punishment, but these processes were developed because of the illegal activities being done by some of the such NGOs which were formed, and they were doing some other activity rather than doing what they were supposed to do.
Let me go across to our other two panelists as well. Tanveer Mir, coming to you now. The allegations against some of the NGOs are quite serious, that the funding received is used to create protests and stall India's growth as well. How do these NGOs then present their case against such strong charges? And under these circumstances, is the government within its rights to use existing laws of scrutiny?
Well, first of all, you have to see that what kind of NGOs are being taken to task and what is their background. Now, the problem with this dispensation is when you consider an organization like Greenpeace and Amnesty International and other organizations which are not only based in India, but they are based in every democratic.
All right, we seem to be losing the bandwidth there with Tanveer Mir. We'll go back to him in just a bit. K. Badrinath, coming to you. Now, the job of the NGOs largely has been seen to step in areas where the government may have missed acting or cannot have those resources released. Resources are stretched out. Many NGOs, as has been accepted by people on the panel, have been doing great work in education, poverty alleviation, skill development, and many other sectors. Would you say their role is necessary in the society? And if yes, how do we ensure that they work without what they feel harassment, but the government says that there are serious allegations against some of them for misuse of funding? How is a balance going to be struck there?
See, I agree with my co-panelists that there are several NGOs which are doing good work. But at the same time, there are equal number of NGOs which have done dirty work. In the name of development, in the name of, societal activities, if you are going to launder funds and if you are going to misuse funds, then it is a criminal activity, and my guess is they must be tried under criminal laws. For example, in the case of CARE, if they have received 330 crores and if 28 crores as reported by the newspapers say that it has been used for public relations, business development, and several other activities which were not permitted under the norms of the receipt of the money, then how do you justify such activity is the big question. Second issue is, you have a designated bank in which all your FCRA funds have to come. But if you think that, the domestic fund account can be used for FCRA remittances, this is unlawful. If you are going to operate in the development sector, like several community organizations do fantastic work, including the Population First and other organizations that are there. But the point here is, there should be, as you also pointed out, there should be a definite balance between what the NGOs are doing and especially the key to evaluating NGOs is how the end use of money is going to be there. Because even if a US investor or a donor is going to put some money into an NGO in India, will it be for political purposes? Will it be for development purposes? Will it be for reaching out to the last man standing, which is not, who has not been touched in the development paradigm?
Okay.
So we cannot just say that, okay, all NGOs are doing very good work. Yes, of course, CARE, if the CARE thing has been proved, CARE has no business in India to be working at all. I'm sorry.
All right,
and also the suspension is only for 6 months. You prove your case.
Okay.
To get back. The NGOs, many of the NGOs, FCRS have been restored.
Okay, so I think Poonam Mutreja has made a point about that in the beginning as well, which, is contradicting some of the points you made. I'll go back to her as well. But before that, I want to go across to Tanveer Meer because we'd lost his line. Tanveer Meer, you were talking about whether or not the government is within its rights to use scrutiny if there are serious allegations against any such NGOs.
The intent of the government in seeking to tighten its screws against particular organizations. Now, when we talk about organizations like Amnesty International, Greenpeace, we understand that these are organizations which indulge in a watchdog practice all over the world. If they criticize the policies of the government towards protection of human rights in India, or excesses done by police forces or government forces in various conflict zones, then as per this dispensation, that is not something which they can easily swallow. That is why these organizations are targeted. Now, we are not saying that by any stretch of imagination, all other organizations which have been opened as NGOs only as a fronts to commit criminal activities or the laundering activities should not be taken to the task. But when the Indian Union is a ratifying country and a part of United Nations, you are also a signatory to all UN conventions, including international conventions like protection of human rights, child development, women development, discrimination, prevention of discrimination against ethnic minorities. When there are organizations who are working in this field, what is happening is that their FCRA business is then tightened up by bureaucrats. Now, bureaucrats can come down and they can then start, pulling out hairs and putting out loopholes or asking you certain questions here and there, which are already normal activities. These activities are not criminal activities. These activities are not beyond the agreements between the donors and the organizations. This is what they do all over the world. So the intent is the issue.
All right.
That when you take on organizations like Amnesty International, what's your real intent?
All right. We'll have to leave it. We'll have to leave it at that, Tanveer Meer, because we've completely run out of time. I'm afraid I haven't been able to go back to any of our guests for another round of questions. But at the moment, while the NGOs continue to say that they feel harassed, on the other hand, the government says that it is well within its rights to undertake the scrutiny of the NGOs if they believe that the funds are being misutilized. Many thanks to all our panelists for joining us here on this discussion. We are taking a very quick break now. We'll be back with more. Stay with us.